Hello everyone, and welcome to the first workshop for the Fall 2021 CPP Game Design Club. This part of the workshop is going to be a video that goes over GitHub. So we're going to talk about everything from what is GitHub to how to set it up, and then how to use it for your projects and collaborate with other people. Specifically, we're going to be setting up a Unity project, so it leads into our second part of the workshop, which will go over the basics of Unity. Okay. So what is GitHub? GitHub is a repository hosting service, which may sound complicated, but it's really not. A repository, or a repo for short, is basically where your files for your project will be stored. And so everything that goes in there, everything that goes into your project, from the assets to the code to the music, it's all going to be hosted in this repo. And GitHub is the online service for hosting these repositories online. So that allows you and your members to view all the files, copy them, and then make changes on your own machines, and then update them on GitHub. So everyone's able to collaborate together. So there are many services that host repositories, but GitHub is the most widely used one, so we're going to be using that for our purposes. So what will we need to be able to use GitHub? First of all, we're going to need a GitHub account. You're going to need to go to the website and make an account. I'll show you how to do that. And next, you're going to need to download Git, which is separate from GitHub, and it's a version control system, which basically means that it keeps track of all the changes that are made in like a certain area of your computer. Okay, so this is the GitHub website. And to create an account, you can either enter right here, or you can go to sign up over here. And what you're going to need is an email. So I'll use one that I haven't used before. And then you're going to set up a password. And I'm not going to create a new account, but you would just set up a password, choose a username, and then you would verify your email, and then you'll be into your account. So let me just go into my own account real quick. And right here is your own hub page for your account, and on the left you'll see the repositories that are in your account. Let's try and go into this one. So I'll explain later on what all of these things are, but this is how you get into your repositories. And if you want to make a new one, you can click here to make a new one, and we'll go over how to do all of that later. Okay, next we're going to go over downloading Git. So first we're going to go over what is Git. So Git is a version control system, or basically it allows you to keep track of all the changes that have been made to your project, or even roll back to previous versions to fix things. And if you're using Linux or Mac, it should be installed by default. You can check this by going into the terminal and typing git -- version, and it should list what version of Git you have. For Windows users, we're going to need to download it on this website right here and follow the steps. I'll just demonstrate that right now, and by the way, all of the links will be in the description below. Okay, here we are at the Git website. So for Windows users, we're going to click here to get the Windows download in the installer, and we're going to open the installer. Yes, allow changes to be made to this device. Just accept all of this, and next. Next, install. Now that we're at the GitHub website, we can create our first repository. So on the left here, you'll see all the repositories that we have access to, but of course, if you have a new account, they won't show up there. Just to show, the left part is whoever owns the repository, and the right part is just the name of the repository. So the Enzo de Cabby ones are mine, and then the other ones are other game projects I worked on that I was just collaborating with. But we're going to create a new repository by hitting the green new button right here. Okay, first thing to do is to create a repository name. Usually it's just the game name, or it could be like the team name, but usually you put the game name. For me, I'm just going to put GitHub. And description, it could just be a short description, like this is a fall 2021 game for the CVP GDC, if you want, or it could be like whatever you want it to be, since it's your guys' game. I'm just going to put a repo to demo GitHub. I can't type because my mic is right in front of my keyboard. Okay, since we're going to be collaborating on this project together and we want everyone to see all the work that we did, we're going to keep it public. And some options for initializing the repository. So the first option is to add a Readme file. A Readme file is just a text file that's basically a longer description for what's in your repo. You can edit it and add whatever you want anyone who's looking at it to know. And it's always good to have it, so initialize that. Next option is to add a Git Ignore. So a Git Ignore file is a file that dictates what files we don't want to see inside of the repo. So sometimes there's files that you don't really need to see, especially when you're like working with Unity, like when you're pushing changes and stuff. So we're gonna enable that as well. And for the Git Ignore template, there's actually a template already for Unity. So just search it up and use that. For choosing a license, we're not really going to deal with that right now. So let's create this repository. Okay, so this is what the main page of the repository looks like. You can see the description I wrote up here, and the files that are inside already will show up here. This is the Git Ignore, and this is the README. Has no info yet, but you can edit that. The first thing we're going to want to do is probably give access to your team members. You could do this at any time, but it's always good to do it early so you don't forget. So you're going to need to give access to your team members so that they're able to work on the repo as fast as possible. So to do that, you go to settings, then you go to manage access, and then invite collaborator. This is for whoever made the repo, which is usually the team lead. So you get everyone's GitHub accounts, and then you invite them as a collaborator, and then they'll be able to work on the repo after that. I do believe, as a quick side note, that the collaborators also have to accept the collaboration in an email that they get to be able to collaborate on the repo. All right. So let's go to the next part. Okay, so we've set up the repository now, and before we continue on how we're going to use the repository, I'm just going to go over a few things that'll be good to know before we get into like the meat and bones of things. First of all, I'm going to be teaching first how to use terminal commands to use GitHub. Other than terminal commands, there are Git Guis, which are graphical user interfaces that help a lot for like people that don't really understand what's going on with Git to use it. So rather than typing in commands to use it, you would be like pressing buttons in the software and it would do it for you. And those are really good to have, but for developers, it's always good to know how to do things through the terminal. So I'll be going over that first. And at the end, I'll briefly go over how to use a Git Gui to do the same things that we did in the video. Okay. Now that I've gone over that, we're going to talk about some of the commands that we're going to be using for Git. The first one you're probably going to have to do is to clone. So using the command Git Clone. Using Git Clone is going to take the repository that's in GitHub and copy all of the files into a local place on your computer. So we're just taking everything that's online and just copying it to your computer. The next one is Git Add. So when you make changes to the new local repository that you have, so these would be separate from what's in GitHub, you would have to do Git Add to add these changes to the staging area to get them ready to be committed. And we're going to talk more about that. The next is Git Commit. So this creates a version of the current state of the repo that's in your computer. And so it has all of the changes that you made. So you would commit all of these changes, and they would all be together in one version. And finally, we have Git Push, which would take all the changes that are on your computer and put them onto the online repo on GitHub. So Clone takes all of the files that are online and brings them into your computer. When you make changes, you use Add to add these changes into a staging area, and in Commit takes all of these changes in the staging area and makes a new version, and then Push pushes this version onto GitHub. So it goes from your computer to the website. Finally, we have Pull. So if there's new changes on your GitHub that you don't have on your computer, you do Git Pull, and then it would take all of the changes that are in GitHub and bring it into your computer. Okay, now that we made the repository, let's get to copying it onto our computer and actually using it. So what we're going to want to do is go into the command line on Windows and the terminal if you're on Mac or Linux. And here we see that we're in our main directory. For me, my main directory is enzod. It'll probably be different on your computer. Well, it should be different, but yeah. Next thing we're going to want to do is move into a directory where we can store our repository. And by the way, a directory is just a folder, basically. So right now we're in the enzod folder, but I want to store my project on my desktop. So I'm going to do cd. Cd means change directory, space, and then the name of my directory. Oops, sorry about that. Name of my directory, so I'm going to do desktop. So now you see that I'm in my desktop because it changed to enzod desktop. And next thing I want to do is make a directory /folder where I can store that repository. So I'm going to do mkdir, which means make directory. Do that, and then we're going to type the name of the directory that we want. So I'm just going to do test. So we're going to make a new folder called test. So if we go to my desktop, you can see there's a folder right here called test. Okay, cool. And we're going to move into that test folder. So do cd test. And if you're filling out a word, if you press tab, it should autofill to what's there. And if you want to go back a directory, you do cd ... go back to the last directory, or the one previous directory. So I'm going to go back into test. And the first thing we're going to want to do is clone the repository to our computer. So the way we do that is we do git. So all the git commands start with git. We're going to do git space clone, and then we go back to our our repository in GitHub, go to code, go to this link right here and copy it. And then if you right click on the command line and paste, so we're going to do git clone and then whatever the URL is from our GitHub. We do enter, and it should clone everything that's inside the repository to our computer. So if we go to this folder that's here, we'll see the GitHub repository is right here, and we open it. Here are the files from before. There's an extra file here since I was playing around with it in between the takes, but it should just be everything that you have in there. Okay, so what do we do now that we have the repository on our computer? Well, now we could actually start making changes to our local repository, which will then add to our repository in GitHub. So let's go to our repository. You can tell it's a repository because it has a .git file. It may or may not be hidden for you, but if it's a file or a folder that has the same name as your repository, it should be the same thing. So we're not going to add a lot of files, but let's just say we want to make a change, and we'll demonstrate that by adding a new text file. And we'll call this text file hello world. So you can see that we definitely made a change on our repository. There's a whole new file. So we can check that by going back to our command line, and anytime you can do git status to see what's going on in your repository. Oh, sorry. I have to cd into GitHub because right now I'm in the test folder, but I need to be in the GitHub folder, so I'll actually be in the repository. So I do cd into GitHub, which was my repository, and now I can do Git Status. And we see right here, the red means that it's a change that is, or it's just a change that's untracked in our repository. So what we want to do is we want to add this change into the staging area, which means prepping it to be a commit. So usually there will be like a lot of files here, because like if you're making changes, anything that's been changed, any file that's been changed or added or deleted will show up here. So the next thing we want to do is Git Add, and then you can do the name of the file, or if you have a lot of files, you can do dot, which means, oh, not dot, there, dot, like period. And that means you're going to add all of the files that are here. So you do enter, and if we do Git Status again, it shows the file is green now. So it's no longer unaccounted for, it's just in our staging area now. So now that we have files in our staging area, that means they're being ready, or they're being prepped to be put into a commit. A commit is just like a version of the repository that has like all the changes that you have in it. So to commit this change, what you want to do is git commit, and then we want to do -m, which means message, and then we're going to name the commit. You're just going to like describe what you did in the commit, like I added an asset, I added art files. So I'm just going to put I added hello world file, and then make sure to put that in quotation marks, and we'll see that it committed. So if we do Git Status again, we'll see that we have one commit that has been made on our computer that hasn't been made on the directory in GitHub. Now a note right here is that it may say that you don't have access to commit, but it did on mine because I've already done this before. But that's probably because you haven't set a username and an email for your computer for Git to use. So to do that, you want to do git config, and then global space username, user.name, and then space and quotations, and you should just put like the name of your GitHub account. So my GitHub account is called Enzo DeCabi, so you do that. Oh, I'm sorry, I wrote this wrong. It's config, or git config -- then it's global. Oh my gosh, global user.name, and then I'm going to put my username. Okay, there we go. And then to set the email, you do git config -- global space user.email, and then put the email that's affiliated with your account for GitHub. So it's my school email. All right, and then you should be able to commit right there. The last thing we want to do is we want to push these changes onto our repo on GitHub. So right now you have a commit on your computer. It says right here that you have one commit on your computer. What that means is that a commit is basically a set of changes that have been made. So you have one full set of changes that are on your computer, but you can see here that it says it's ahead of origin/main, which means it's ahead of the online one by one commit. So to commit these changes onto the online one, you do git push. Okay, and then it should go through that and do all that. I've already set this up, but it'll most likely prompt you to sign into GitHub. Like there will be a prompt right here that shows you, that asks you to sign into GitHub. You're going to need to do that to be able to push onto your repository. So if we go to our repository and reload the page, we can see the hello world file that we added. So pushing it, took it from our local computer and put it onto here. Okay, so now you know the basics of making changes to your repo and then pushing them onto your repository on GitHub. So the way you can actually see the changes is by going here to commits, and then you could see all of the commits that we made. So all of these were changes that were made to the online repo. I have a few extra ones here because I messed up recording a few times, so I had to come back and redo them. But this is the hello world file we added. All right, so let's go back. And now I'm going to talk about another really important feature for GitHub that allows you to collaborate with other people, basically. So right here, it says that we are on the main branch. So what does that mean? Well, the main branch is basically the default area where all of your stuff is held. But you can create another branch. So a branch is basically just a copy at that time of like everything that's in the repo, but it's like all the progress for it is considered separate from the main branch. So say you're working on your game, right, and you want to work on a new gameplay feature. Maybe you want to make your character jump, but you don't want to mess up the main branch because it's filled with things that have already been completed, and if you're making changes onto it with stuff that you're still working on, it could become buggy. So you want to create a separate branch so you can test things out. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So come back to our command console. You can see I'm in the repo because it says GitHub right here, which is the folder for my repo. So the way to make a new branch is to do git checkout. So git checkout is the command that moves you into a different branch. And to make a new branch, you do git checkout and then -b and then the name of your new branch. So we're going to call it branch 2. So we can check on all the branches that we have by doing git branch, and then we see all of the branches that we have. The extra one was just from before when I was messing around, and the green one is the branch that we're currently in. So we see that we're in branch 2. Okay, so let's say we're working on branch 2 and we don't want to put our changes into the main branch, but we want to save our changes onto the repo so other people can look at them. So let's go make a change right now. Let's go back to the test, GitHub, and then let's add a new file. Let's just add another text document. Let's call it branch test. Okay, so we add a new file, and if we go back to, oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. If we go back to here, and we do git status, let me move my mouse, we'll see again that we have an unaccounted for file because we just added it. So we're going to go through the same process we did before. Git add, and then dot for all, and then git commit, and then -m for message, and then we're going to put a message. We're going to do added branch test file. All right, cool. And you git status one more time. See, we have we have a commit on our thing on this branch, but it's not in our main repo yet on GitHub. So what we want to do first is we want to do git checkout again to just make sure. Oh, sorry, git checkout branch 2, just to make sure that we're in branch 2 because that's where we want to push our changes. And then we do git push, but we see here that it says that our upstream, or we have no upstream branch. So what does that mean? So the upstream branch is basically a pointer to the online repo. So when we clone the repo, it automatically made one called origin that we use to go into that points to the repo. So when we did git push, it would point to origin and then go straight to main on the repo. But since we just made a new branch on our own computer, the online repo doesn't have that, and there's no pointer that's made for that. So what we can do is we do git push, and then we do -u. -u is just short for set upstream, so you don't have to write all of that out. And then we do origin. Origin is basically the default upstream that was already created when we cloned, so we're going to use it again. But after origin, we're going to put the name of the branch that we want to go into. or we want to push into. So we'll do branch 2. And we'll see that it pushes all of that to our new branch. So let's go back to our GitHub and change it again. So if we go here, we see now that we have branch 2, which is a new branch that we just made on our command line. So we go there, and sure enough, we'll see that we have the branch test file that we just pushed, and it says that we're 1 commit ahead of main, which means that we have one set of changes that aren't in the main branch. So that's how you work on things without ruining the main branch. So what my team would do is we would have a branch for everyone to work on stuff. Like we would have a Lorenzo branch, a Miguel branch, and we'd all work on our own branch. And then we could also make even more branches off of that, like branches that work on UI. So if multiple people are working on UI, they can go into that branch and then do all of that stuff that they need to do. Okay, so one more thing that I forgot to mention is that if you didn't clone your repo, but instead initialized a repo in your own computer by doing git inish, which would create a new repo in your computer, and you don't have a pointer like the origin pointer that I was talking about that points to an online repo, you could actually set it yourself by doing git remote origin. So we're setting what origin was, which is the pointer that we were using before, and then you would put the URL for your GitHub, like right here. You would copy this, and then you would put it right here, and then hit enter, and that would set the remote origin on your computer. Okay, so we're almost done with everything that we need to go over, but we're going to go over 2 more things, and that's going to be Git Pull and Git Merge. So say say someone's been working on something in another branch, and you want to see what they're working on, or like help them out, but you don't have their changes locally on your computer. What do you do? Well, rather than just cloning the entire repository again, what you can do is a Git Pull. So a pull basically takes the current version of the branch you're on and puts it into your repository. So right now we are on, let's do git branch to check what branch we're on. So we're still on branch 2. Let's go into the main branch, and we did add a new file into branch 2 that's not in main earlier. So let's say we want to work on that new file that we added that's in branch 2, but we don't have it. So what we want to do is we want to do git pull, and then you want to do origin. So origin, of course, is the pointer that we talked about that goes to the online repo. So git pull origin, and then the name of the branch that we want to pull. So in this case, it's branch 2. Okay, and it should have pulled all of that into our file. Of course, we won't really see it here since it was already in there, but yeah, it'll pull all of the files that are in that branch into your repository locally. So the most useful way to use this is, like, say someone is working on something for the game, and they said they just finished this new gameplay aspect, and they asked you to help, or they asked for anyone to look at it. So you just do git pull origin, and then whatever the name of the branch is, and then it'll download it to your computer, and then you could look at whatever changes that they made. The last thing that we're going to go over is Git Merge. So say you finish something that you're working on in your own branch, and now it's time to actually put it into the main branch because it's ready to be put into the actual game. So what do you do? So what you do is you merge the branches together. So it's basically just going to take the changes that are on one branch and put them into the other one. So it's really simple to do this. So let's say we were working on branch 2. So I'm going to go back to branch 2. And we want to merge branch 2 with the main branch. So the first thing you do is you go into the branch that you want to merge into. So in our case, we're going to merge into main. So we're going to git checkout main. Yeah, it says that we're one commit ahead of main. So that's the text file we added into branch 2. It sees that that's in branch 2, but it's not in main. So what you want to do is you want to merge that into main, so that main will have that text file. And it's really simple to do that. The command is git merge and the name of the branch you want to merge. Okay, so we see that it's merged now. And the last thing we had to do was actually push the merged branch onto the repo, which unfortunately I did do off camera because I made a mistake, but you can see here that I did push the changes after the merge, and you can see all the new files that are here. And now that we're actually done with the branch that we are using, we can actually delete it by doing git branch -d, which is delete, and then name of branch. So that deletes the branch on our computer, and to delete it off of the repo on GitHub, you do git branch, or no, sorry, git push origin d, and then branch 2, and then that deletes the other branch. So basically, these are the basics for going over, or that we need to know to be able to collaborate on Unity together, or not on Unity, on GitHub together. And yeah, feel free to reach out to any one of us if you have any questions on what to do. Okay, I said earlier that we would go over Git GUIs, so let's go over that real quick. This Git GUI is called Github Desktop. So instead of going into the command line and doing all of that stuff with all the commands, you can just use this. I'll leave a download for it down in the description. And this is the screen when you're already in a repository. I don't know how to get it back to the default screen, but on the default screen, there should be 3 options on how to create a new repository. And then the middle one is clone repository, which we did in the command line section. So we're going to do that again. So you would click on clone repository, or you can go up here and then do clone repository. And then what you can do is, if you're logged into GitHub, you could just find the repository that's there, or you could take the URL and then go back to GitHub. Go back to GitHub and then go to code, copy the URL, and post it back into GitHub. And then here is where you choose where it's going to go, where the repository is going to be created on your computer. Same here. So I'm going to clone this repository again. I'm going to choose a different folder so that they don't get cloned in the same place. And we're cloning it. So this copies all of the files onto your computer. So now we're in the new repository, like the new clone repository in my computer. And we see here, this is where you find the branches. And then this is where you change your repository. And then this is where you push and pull things. So let's go to that repository. Delete all of these so I can go to it. Let's go to that repository. Let me find it. GitHub. So this is the repository. Say you want to make a change again. Let's call it Git Gui. Okay. And then we see now that it says on the left here, this will list all of the changes that we've made. So we see one change here. We added a file. That's what the green means. Red will mean you deleted a file, and yellow will mean you changed the file. So we see that we have changed the file, and to commit and push the file, what you want to do is first you want to create a name for the commit. So we're just going to call it GUI, and then we're going to commit to main. So to commit to a different branch, you would go up here and you can create a new branch with using this button. Okay, you can do, you can go to a new branch by using this button, and then you do commit, and that commits it, so it's locally changed on your computer in the commit. And remember that we have to do one more thing, which is to push. So all we have to do is push this button right here. And then let's go into a new branch. Let's call this branch 3. So now we're in a new branch, and you would do everything that you can here. If there were files in that branch that you didn't have and you needed to pull them down, instead of saying push right here, it would say pull. So you would go into the branch you wanted to go into and then pull them, and then it would download them into your computer. So that's just a basic rundown of how to use Git Desktop, which is a GUI. If you don't feel like learning to use the terminal, feel free to use this. The download's in the description. But I would always recommend trying to learn how to use the terminal first, and then you can move on to the GUI to like save some time. But it's always good to learn the terminal. Okay, the last thing for this video is just some lead up into the workshop, the actual in-person workshop part. First of all, please download Visual Studio Code and Unity for the workshops before the workshop begins, so that you'll be ready to go. We'll leave links in the description down below. And then I'm just going to show you how you would get your Unity project into the repository real quick. Just going to apply things that we've all learned. So this is just a sample project that I worked on before, just as a demo. And before you can put it into the repository, there's two things you need to do. Go to Edit, Project Settings, and then in Editor, you would need to go to Asset Serialization and then make sure force text is enabled. This is like a wrong version of a project, so I can't like change it, but it should be force text. And then go to Version Control, and then make sure Visible Meta Files is checked, or is what's here also. Again, the version I'm using, I can't really change those things for this project, but that's what you need to do to be able to use Unity with GitHub. Okay, once you've done that, to actually put your game into the repository, you need to find where your game is saved. So for me, it's saved in my enzod file or folder. These are the game files right here. You can tell because it'll say like assets, library, log, all that stuff. And it's really simple. Just go to the folder, which is your repo, and then just copy everything that's here into there. Okay, so I can't do that right now since it's open, but yeah, because I didn't close Unity, but you would be able to copy everything in there, and then you would just go back to the command line. I'm still in the GitHub repository, and then you just do, so you can do GitHub or Git Status. Git Status, and then you'll see all these things were added. So you do Git Add dot for Git Add all. Okay. Oh, there was a lot of stuff that was in there. Okay. We're just gonna wait for this to finish. Okay. All these things were added. Hit commit -m. Added the game in the repo. Okay, finish that, and then last, of course, we'll do git checkout main. Make sure that we're in main, and then we do git push. Oh, okay. So it's saying that I can't actually push yet because there's changes that are in main that I don't actually have on my computer yet. So I have to do git pull. Check one more time. I do git pull origin main. I would pull everything that's in the repo into my computer, and then now I could do git push. Okay, it's going through all of that. And now it should be in my main repo, or the main branch of my repo. So go here, and now that you can see that the game is in here, you can see all the files that are there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you over in the next part of the workshop in the Unity tutorial. Thanks everyone for watching, and please let any of us know if you have any questions about Git. Specifically, I'm Enzo, so feel free to reach out and ask if you have any questions. Glad to see you. See ya.